Guillaume Kuster is a CIRCOM Media Expert, trainer, journalist, and consultant. He's coming from Finland, and I know that some of my colleagues came especially for your presentation.
Oh, that's nice. Thank
because
you.
It is about the new formats,
yep.
how to be more interesting, how to make our packages more sellable. With great pleasure, I give the floor to you.
Hi, so I'm Guillaume. I used to be a journalist for 20 years. Now I do mainly training and consulting, and I was asked to talk to you about that. New forms for storytelling, but I'm not going to really. I've decided to hack the conference instead, because something quite interesting happened in a few days ago in Germany. And I think that very audience should be hearing about that. So if you're okay, I'm going to talk to you about slightly something else which is strongly related and also will illustrate why I, in a friendly manner, quite disagree with what was just said. So that guy is young. He, I think, knows the difference in between communication and information. He's called Rizzo. And that guy, as you could probably guess from the setup, is a YouTuber, has blue hair, a bunch of musical instruments behind him. So he's quite a popular YouTuber in Germany that talks about music and music making all the time. But some days ago, just before the European elections, he put together a video bashing CDU, which is the leading party, Angela Merkel's party in Germany. And I'm just going to play a 55 seconds extract of a 55-minute video.
CDU-Leute lügen, wie ihnen grundsätzliche Kompetenzen für ihren Job fehlen, wie sie gegen deutliche Expertenmeinungen Politik machen, wie sie sich augenscheinlich an verschiedenen Kriegsverbrechen beteiligen, wie sie Propaganda und Unwahrheiten gegen die junge Generation einsetzen, wie bei ihrer Politik die letzten Jahrzehnte die Reichen immer mehr gewinnen und alle anderen immer mehr ablosen, und ich zeige, dass nach der Expertenmeinung von zigtausenden deutschen Wissenschaftlern die CDU aktuell unser Leben und unsere Zukunft zerstört.
So, just a random guy on YouTube, right? One of these guys that has opinions and likes to share them, doesn't need a TV station to do so because he has a cheap camera and YouTube. Turns out he put together that 55 minutes video and he backed his video and arguments with facts. He said in the video that he's been researching that for several weeks before, and one of the big themes that he talked about was climate change and certainly the role of CDU. The title of the video is Zerstörung der CDU, Destruction of the CDU party. And he also attacks the other big party in Germany, SPD, about basically the way they have had a negative impact on German society. And he's been backing his 55 minutes long pamphlet with sources, and everything that he's talking about is backed by evidence that he's put together in that nicely laid out document that is attached to the video with 13 pages of references. I'd like to bring on the stage someone you know, who happens to be German, who happens to be a political journalist and trainer. We just finished a 4-day journalism session together with Hans, who doesn't have a microphone, so he'll use this one. And this video, Hans, was published 12 days ago. In 12 days, more than 13 million German speaking people viewed that video, and it has had some impact on German political life, it has had some impact on German media life, and German media life and political life is something you know about. So can you just describe in a few minutes what happened after the release of that video?
Professional journalists as well as professional politicians were shocked. They wouldn't believe the figures. It started with the 2 million viewers, which are his average, and then it just exploded. It was like an avalanche, which starts as a snowball and comes down and ruins the village. And the inhabitants of the village were professional journalists, professional media, and professional politicians. Their reactions was from the politicians first, absolutely helpless, chaotic, and headless. First, they said, oh, his research is not proper. He's one-sided, he's biased, he forgot about other information. And after that, they said, we are going to respond. We are going to ask our youngest member of parliament, who is 26, like him, to make a response video. They recorded that video. It was never broadcasted because they found out it wouldn't work. So the situation of the politicians is still chaotic. They don't know how to deal with that, and it's very similar with the professional journalists.
So it's had a massive impact on German society, as probably the German people sitting in the room have heard about. It got like massive national news coverage because people didn't understand what was happening. Can you see any difference at all in between the looks and style of these two guys? Does that relate to anything we talk about in that conference about the way we address people? I know news tend to be a bit stiffer in Germany than elsewhere. I lived by the border for some time. But we kind of all do news in that fashion. We all talk about politics in that fashion. And that guy on the left doesn't. What was interesting is, well, the massive coverage of the media that didn't really know how to take it, what to tell about it, the politicians who didn't know how to react, they were completely off base, and the reflections on national news on one of the main news channels in Germany after the leading story, which was about that, sounded like this clip.
Und das ist weit mehr als eine Auseinandersetzung zwischen YouTube-Community und Regierungsparteien. Das ist Ansporn und Herausforderung zuallererst mal für Journalisten. Die Bilanz von politischem Handeln, dessen Folgen und Verfehlungen darzustellen, in Zusammenhang setzen, und zwar nach journalistischen Standards und mit journalistischem Handwerkszeug. Und dann, das wird die größte Herausforderung, auch wirklich alle in diesem Land erreichen. Auch die, die sich ihre Informationen mittlerweile fast ausschließlich über YouTube holen.
Come on, people, we're the serious guys. We wear the suits. We went to school. We know about journalism. That's our toy. Don't play with it. Don't break it, YouTubers. But in the meantime, all these guys get the information from elsewhere. And in the meantime, that guy in a suit with magnifique globe behind it doesn't talk to YouTubers and people watching YouTubers. He does. And he's not the only one doing that. He's been using in his clips other YouTube material from a guy you know well called Thilo Jung. Thilo Jung, apart from being a handsome man, is also a journalist. He defines himself as a web journalist, and I think he's the only web journalist to be part of what German association?
Yeah, he's a member of the German Press Corps, of the National German Press Corps, and he's also a member of the National Journalist Organization, as I am, which runs what we call the National Press Conference 3 times a week.
So that means you guys are meeting with politicians, top-notch politicians, 3 times a week?
Yeah, we meet with the press offices of all the German ministries 3 times a week for 1 hour and a half. And these press meetings are run by the journalists, not by the politicians. Quite different to the White House press conference. We are the masters of ceremonies. We ask them, they have to answer, we set the agenda. And that guy, he's one of, meanwhile, 2 online journalists who is focusing that. And so he is kind of a link in between the YouTube and web generation and professional journalism.
How would you qualify his work?
His work is provocative. Does
he go by the standards that Carlo just defined?
It's yes, because he's a skilled and trained journalist, but he uses the tools in a very, very, very sharp way. He also allows himself partly to be an activist, and this goes along with what we heard this morning about constructive journalism. He's supporting the movement, everybody knows the name of Greta Thunberg, Fridays for Future. He says that these are kids who care for our future, or fight for the future, against destruction of the planet. And so I, as a journalist, I'm reporting on that, and I'm not neutral that way. I think the kids are right, as long as they're proven right, for example, by scientists.
So just to sum up and to see the effects, because what's interesting for us is to analyze what's happening. One YouTuber puts a popular video online. That's not the first time it happens. The first time, the first in that situation is the fact that it has had an impact in the way people got access to new content. As I said, Rizzo used some footage from that guy in his video to make his point. That guy's videos were linked. That is the Thilo Jung's YouTube channel subscription count. It's not just view counts. It's people that actively said, I want more from that guy. I want more from that respected journalist that is the only web journalist that is member of the German Press Association. And, well, you see the figures. Can you figure out anything different from the line on the left? Here. That's when Rizzo's video went online. He added 50% in less than 1 week of people following him. Another example. MyLab is another YouTuber, but she's a YouTuber from a public service organization called Funk. She's not a journalist, she's a scientist. A lot of Rizzo's content was about science, scientific fact, and what she did, she put up a video a few days later where she fact-checked all the facts that Rizzo used to form his opinion. She doesn't talk about opinions, she talks about the facts he uses. That's a little short clip about what she has to say after reviewing and fact-checking the video.
Blauhaarige Musik-YouTuber über Science. Wie sage ich das jetzt? Deutlich mehr als viele Politiker.
And so she went through all the 13 pages of references, and she made a 27-minute-long video where she checked everything scientific and mostly approved Rizzo's video. She had the word Rizzo in that video. And these are the stats of her channel. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. First line, most popular video ever, that analysis video from Rizzo. Second line, the most popular before that. Make that a little bit bigger, that's 2 times more views. She, as a scientific, fact-checking, doing work, public service work, got twice as more views as a most popular video. So what do we do to try to strike the balance in between the two? One thing we can do instantly, perhaps, is that. That could work. Why not? The other thing we can do is understand the mechanics of the distribution model, is understanding the intertwined links in between channels, social media, arguments, and all of that. I've used that slide before because I really like the wallpaper. But we've been designed as companies to do stuff for that. We had really nice cars, at least in France, I don't know elsewhere. And we had the power, we had the transmitter, we had the way to talk to the people, and that forced us, this very technology forced us to talk to the maximum possible amount of people with one message. And if you fast forward 2019, we got beautiful, expensive 4K HDR TV screens and radios, digital radios, but the basic means of transporting the information and everything that it implies. I mean, the structure of the companies, the organization, the training of the people is designed about that old technology. And when you put some new stuff in the mix, we get lost as TV people. That distribution model may sound basic for some of you in the room, but I am amazed that I have in training with the companies I train and counsel and strategists that I have to beat on that again and again to say that we are not doing content in the same way. Yes, quality is essential, but the container in which you put it is very important. When we design TV programs, we master everything. The duration of the program, in which order the program, the items are laid out, the resources we allocate, everything. We make a one product. And when it's viewed, it kind of gets siloed. I never met someone in the morning at a coffee machine telling me phrase by phrase the contents of the previous day's newscast. But I've met loads of people sharing stuff on social media, and that's the exact same content. So what happens when we post something, when we think that we did a good job, and we have a fabulous piece of information to share to the world? Remember, we used to put the message out for everybody at the same time. Now we are hitting one guy first, or one guy. There's like nanoseconds, perhaps, between that notification and the next, but that guy has now huge powers. He can like, he can share, and in turn, there's a cascade of other people liking or sharing or not. And if you multiply that by the number of outlets, number of posts, and most essentially, number of users, you get something completely messy that we don't control anymore. That's very basic. That's how social media work. But TV stations don't understand that because it's a really slow process to change an organization. We've seen this morning very encouraging results from Sweden and also Denmark and other parts of the world. But we go from that controlled distribution to that messy, decentralized distribution. And that's where the difference is striking. So you mentioned this morning that you had a boss telling you that a TV station is like a shoe factory. Actually, I like the analogy. Perhaps not in the way your boss meant it, but if you look at your feet and you look at your neighbor's feet, are you all wearing the same shoes? No, you're not. Shoemakers researched markets. They know what fits certain people, what doesn't fit others, what they like, shape, color, whatever you want. By doing that, we are giving one shoe size and the same model to everyone. So what's important now is to understand the logics and what we should aim at. I heard the word personas this morning from Sweden. That's really important. I learned a lot by doing in Brussels sessions together with Thilo Kasper, who used to be creative director at Funk in Germany, the most successful endeavor new format in Europe. And they call that slightly differently. What they do is they try to have like that pyramid effect. They try to have like people at the top who share to other people who in turn will share. They call that distributor audiences. So what you're trying to do is to find something which relates to a small subset of your target audience. It's not just having a target. We're going to do Snapchat stuff for the youngsters. No, that's not enough. You need to narrow it down. You need to do niche products. And within these niche targets, you need to find really good, well-connected people. These guys up there. These guys talking between themselves. They share content. You need to monitor that. What does it mean? What is it? What would be a powerful distributor audience for maybe health subjects? Nurses. Does anybody has nurse friends? Are you in nurses' Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups? These guys share a lot of stuff related to that. They have an immense power because they are peers of their friends and families. And when the people receive content from them, who they know personally, they value it more than what they get through us. So we need to target these guys, nurses, or another example of a distributed audience, activists, cyclists, gamers, young parents. Narrow it down. What do you want to talk about? What's your story? Who is your target audience? And within that target audience, who is your distributor? Who is your neurotransmitter? We used to have transmitters on top of mountains. Now we need to seek out these guys. Yeah? Makes sense? And then the job is not done. We come from a world when the newscast is done, it just vanishes in thin air, and we were all finished. The job was done. Now the job starts when you publish something. You go into communities. You are, as a journalist, joining these groups, these Facebook groups, these WhatsApp groups, these whatever groups, forums, whatever you want. You tell them, I'm a journalist for Serbian TV. I'm interested into the such and such topic. Would you allow me in your group? And you share your stuff there, and you monitor the conversation. That's work. That's people. That's reorganization of the way we work in TV stations. Thank you.
Questions? I have a question.
Yeah.
First, I have nothing against suits and tie, I must say. Secondly, do we know who Rizzo is?
Yes, we do. He's a musician.
What is his background? What is his education?
He's a human being able to read, make sense of content, and arrange it in a comprehensible way. That's who he is.
Okay.
He's not. Journalists are not superhumans. We are. I mean,
no.
Okay, I'm allowed to
Who
do that.
is
I used to be a journalist in TV for 20 years.
Who
I know that we have egos that are slightly above average.
My question has nothing to do with ego.
I think it is.
I'm just well. Okay. I'm just trying. If I were to, I mean, I would research on this guy because who is MyLab?
MyLab is someone is public service information actually in Germany. So MyLab is a scientist that was hired by German public service
and she was
to do scientific videos.
Exactly. And she was checking what the guy was talking about.
And she basically gave him a pass.
And she said it was accurate.
Yes.
May I add?
In my world, this is exactly what journalists is doing and should be doing. So MyLab is journalism the way I see it.
And the interesting part about your reaction is that MyLab doesn't define herself as a journalist.
No. I'm saying that MyLab is actually a journalist.
She's a scientist.
Yeah.
In the same manner than someone like anybody knows about John Oliver, has a show called Last Week Tonight on HBO.
Yeah,
he's a comedian. He's proving points in a journalistic manner, but he's miles away from being a journalist.
But she's being fed, in my view, by quality journalism.
She has an intention of establishing the truth of the scientist.
You can't make a mockery of politicians unless there are journalists reporting, providing hard news on the events. Well, and then then you have, then you can have infotainment. Then you can have John Oliver's. And how do you comment on that?
May I add something, because I know the persons, Rizzo, as well as the situation in Germany. First point is, Rizzo does not claim himself to be a journalist, but before he set up and broadcasted or uploaded his 55 minutes pamphlet, that's the correct word, he used journalistic skills to get his facts and statistics right. All the statistics which he had on the net were from official German, European statistics. And so he fact-checked first. And even the parties attacked, when they said, oh, he's not treating us right, they of course tried to prove him wrong. And they fact-checked his fact-checks. And they had to admit the facts he reported were all correct. And then this fact-check was fact-checked once again by professional German media. And they also confirmed, yes, the figures he had, the statistics he had, were absolutely correct. So I would say, even if this was in the form of a pamphlet, the content he provided was right.
Notice something else to be said, which is to water that down and to give us a chance, because I'm here because I believe that we can succeed at what we try to do. Something that we didn't talk about is consistency. And consistency is key. Producing regular content, quality content, is something that is out there for us to grab. But we just have to think about new ways to tell what we have to sell to the audience. We just finished a 4-day training where we try to do that at CIRCOM, where we give new toys for people to use, but the main point of the training I'm going to talk about tomorrow, so you guys are going to have to deal with me twice on stage, but we want the journalists, to understand you can't just do as you do today, being handed a paper, and do something you know well how to do. You have to put yourselves as a group around the table, think about who you want to reach, what you want to tell, and then find a container to tell it. And the beauty and the sad thing in that is that these containers are changing constantly. Which is working now probably won't work in 6 months. So you have to find ways and organize yourself around that new reality if you want to be relevant.
And Rizzo's video was released when? Before which elections?
12 days ago, before the European elections.
Yeah, and the results of the elections are interesting. The landslide victory of CDU and SPD.
Well, yeah, I mean, they lost voters. Both CDU and SPD lost voters.
Yes, but they will be the majority at the European Parliament. So my question is,
I mean, you must compare elections from 2014. An election is compared with the results of the previous elections. I'm not saying that Rizzo, caused that, but I mean, we can ask ourselves questions about the influence of that video.
Because I wanted to ask you, is there an element of an attraction? When the guys like Rizzo appear.
Yes.
Yeah, we like it. It's amusing. It's entertaining. But it doesn't really change when people go to cast their ballot. They.
I beg to differ. We don't know that. But he's attractive. He has blue hair.
Yeah.
May I add one more information? This video, the 13 million, more than 13 million viewers up to now, and increasing day by day. During the time we viewed and discussed it in the training, it gained another 200,000 viewers in 10 minutes of talking about that. And it got more than 1 million likes, and it got more than 250,000 written comments on that. I guess any editor of you would be happy to get 250 response on a news program you do. And now imagine 250,000 written response, and I read some of them. Many of them were from people who never ever before watched any kind of that stuff. Many of them said, I'm 55 years old, would be happy if in my youth we would have that kind of information and discussion ability, right? That's the kind of response which comes to that, and which is also kind of an environment to understand that avalanche and maybe turning point of media in Germany.
And also there's a lot of quality content. I mean, it's not just comments saying first, it's like actual discussion debates within the comments. What is journalism if it's not having people talk about issues?
Yeah. We have two questions. Gentleman over here and the lady over there.
It was your first, second or third sentence of your presentation where you said you didn't agree with what Carlo said. Do we have time for a 3-minute debate between Carlo and Guillaume?
If Carlo is interested, but
how hungry are you?
Maybe
because he's Italian and I'm French.
We're not hungry.
Maybe,
I've got 3 minutes.
And the lady over there also has.
I agree. That's a really great idea. First of all, then it's really.
Is it working?
It's okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So I would like to say it's a really great idea to do this video by Rizzo. It's a shame that non-journalists didn't come up with this idea. It's also a great package. But my question is, luckily, the checking facts showed that facts were right. But what would happen that facts were completely wrong?
I think
we would have a fake news.
Yes.
And we had so many viewers in the first few minutes. Few days ago, few days later, we had so many viewers. What would happen then? Then we would come up with Carlos and chaos.
I think I might be very naive, or maybe we did a bad job at explaining what happened afterwards, but the amount of public debate that came after that is a sign of the quality of the video. And I don't think that fake news stories in themselves bring that much debate and public good quality debate afterwards. And I think it's a really good indicator if you see that one video is causing that debate and is changing something in the way people think, that it's valid. So yes, there's a lot of fake news. You heard about the BBC and other outlets that are trying to debunk stuff, and it's really difficult work because yes, there is a lot of people with interest to have you think something, buy something, whatever. But you can judge by the result. And then you have all the people fact-checking, and these need to exist. But you could see that he drops the video, and my lab was not the only one fact-checking. There was lots of people fact-checking that, and they produced their own videos. And the traditional media, Spiegel, Zeit Online, I mean, all the big, massive German serious organizations just made top stories out of that, and really showed the clash and the disconnect in between CDU and young Germans, not only young Germans. So, in summary, if you want to have a fight, we're not going to have a fight because we're friends. I agree with most of what Carlos said when he said that we need training, we need quality control, and we need to be serious and to have good ethics. I think I disagree when you say that millennials don't always see the difference in between communication and information. I think that they are not more stupid than you and I. I teach in universities. I'm not young anymore. I see figures and facts, and I see young creators, YouTubers and others that are putting together really good quality content without being formally trained, because I didn't spend much time at the university. I became a journalist, however, so it's despite of that. So people with brains are able to understand stuff. You don't need to have a stamp on your forehead showing the world that you don't need a PhD, I think, to make good points.
Okay, I have the microphone.
Working? Can you hear me? Okay.
Sorry, you didn't see me waving my hand.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, sure,
but
go
your
ahead.
Assistant
yeah, we have.
Thank you. My name's Jane Wyatt. I'm here for netopia.eu, and I would just like to make the point that I don't want to see the two speakers fighting because they're saying the same thing. Carlo said very early in his presentation, what we need is recognizable journalists. Yeah? So people we can trust. And I think in the age of digitalization and automated journalism and bots, it's very important to know who our news is coming from, what kind of people they are, and to be able to relate to them. So the local TV news in a regional newscast comes from someone who speaks with the right accent, in the right language, for the audience that they're addressing. And Rizzo, obviously, has built up a relationship of trust with all the people who subscribe to his YouTube channel. So what we need is just more quality journalists we can recognize, who we can trust.
I think you're exactly right.
Can I get the mobile phone?
Somebody found his mobile, yay!
No, it's actually it's a microphone.
No, I need it because I cannot stand sitting there. I agree perfectly. I think he described perfectly a situation which I don't like, but which I take into account. This is the world today, perfectly described by Guillaume, which is my friend, although he has no blue hair.
It'll come.
Who knows in the future? I could sound a little bit nostalgic. I accept it. I could sound a traditionalist. I accept it. I could sound against the trends of the new generation and the technologies. I accept it. Because I'm passionate with my job. I love journalism, and I do think, again, that journalism is different from communication. I have nothing against communication as a big sea whose waves are submerging everything. I take that into account, but this is exactly why I do think that journalism needs to be distinguishable in comparison to the big sea of communication. Even if I'm old-fashioned, even if I am a traditionalist, even if I can sound too much critical of the new trends. But I have to introduce, if you allow me to do that, an element, which is public service on one side, commercial news on another side. I do think that this is the relevant element in the discussion, because public service paid by the taxpayers not only could allow itself to be even boring, with no blue hair, no sensationalism at any cost, but it must do that to be different. I don't want public services to scream and yell and have blue hairs and pink hairs or whatever.
I want
colors.
them to do that.
Okay?
I very much want them to do that. And that's what I make a living from.
I like the graphics of the Times of London. Ha ha ha! I love it.
Gentlemen, it's time to sum up. Huh?
It's just text and words that I could dwell on, concentrate on, and think and elaborate. Many times in my day, I like to go on the web, to see commercial TV, and to find different emotions and sentiments. But when I want to understand something and I want a challenge for my mind, I want things to be quite flat, no sensationalism, no people screaming and yelling, which is exactly the opposite of what I'm doing right now. I know that. I know that. Sorry.
Okay, sure. A young person wants to say something. Wait, just a second. For the microphone.
It's pretty loud. I was just going to say journalism is... Oh, he's going off.
Who are you, by the way? Hi.
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm from BBC South.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that journalism is changing. It's going online. It's going digital. So if you're saying you don't want to embrace the kind of new way, are you not worried you're going to be left behind? Because, I mean, it's the way it's going. It's the way it's changing. The landscape is different now to what it was 10 years ago. And if we don't keep up with trends, people aren't going to keep up with us. They're going to go elsewhere. So my question is, are you not worried that people will become disassociated with you if you don't change and adapt?
I think she was asking a question to you.
Yeah, but you have a microphone. Yeah.
I need the mic.
No, it should be okay, Carlo. It should be okay. It should be working.
If you can wait a minute, it's all right. Okay, we have to accept the challenges. We have to accept that the world is changing. Of course, of course. What I do not accept is to follow the trends necessarily as a duty, because I don't want to find myself in that kind of fighting for the audience, for the numbers, for the quantity. I want to fight for the quality, not the quantity. A fight for journalism, a fight for real facts, a fight for...
If I may, very calmly say that I think that we should do marketing for news. I think that we need to understand our targets and we need to use marketing techniques.
Yes, and in my marketing research, sorry to interrupt you, I found that quality is what people want.
But I mean...
Sorry?
Why does online mean sacrificing quality?
Why does online be... Why should online be sacrificing quality, she asks.
I mean, the formats around us show that the pace is growing, that the rhythm is growing. Posts are one after the other. We are living in a world of titles which is superficial. Again, I'm not against in principle. I think there's room for everybody, and I like it as well. I like it. It's a challenge. But journalism, again, I think is different.
I think we shouldn't
That
be taking...
is communication. Journalism is going inside.
If I may just say, we shouldn't be taking journalism to the grave. I mean, it should live on and adapt and use new forms.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
That's actually the most fun I've had at CIRCOM conference.
I know.
Thank you very much.
I know that I'm from the past and I'm a loser in this battle.
I'm a little bit worried because I
believe in journalism. Because I believe in journalism, I will fight this war.
So do we.
Yeah.
So do we.
Yeah.
We believe in journalism as well.
Okay, a great debate. A great debate. Thank you, Guillaume, very much. Thank you. Thank you, Carlo.
Thank you.
And thank you for the idea to have this confrontation.
I told you in French is Italian. Where would that go?